This video is about my research into Tomorrowland and Walt Disney and his possible Masonic ties, as well as his planned community, better known as Epcot. And this video is also about the movie Tomorrowland, as well as the festival Tomorrowland. The festival Tomorrowland encompasses electronic music as well as space music, and I think that the Age of Aquarius and the New World Order are simultaneous, and that they have many similar elements. And when you look on Wikipedia about the Age of Aquarius, it does say that one of the signs that the Age of Aquarius is here is because it relates to electronic music or electricity, computers, flight, democracy, but also in terms of culture, it resembles space music, and I think that's what we see going on today. A lot of artists, a lot of musicians, the music they put out, it sounds a lot like outer space in this day and age of space exploration. And also the festival, on the website there's an all-seeing eye, the Eye of Horus, the Eye of Ra, the Eye of Lucifer. And also in that same website they have a radio station called One World, because it'll be one world governed by the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. The Antichrist will be the dictator. One world order, new world order, same thing. Of course, they'll talk about magic, because the one world religion will resemble magic. And I think magic and space music and electronic music goes hand in hand, because I think it has to do with polytheism. During Artemis 2, whenever YouTube broadcasted footage of the astronauts in outer space, what was pretty weird to me was that the astronauts, whenever they were wishing all of us happy Easter and stuff, the way they described monotheism and Christianity, they were being very friendly with it, very secular, very inclusive with it, very vague in general, as if it's a polytheistic religion. I don't think they were being too particular, too specific on their fundamental beliefs. And I think that encompasses a broader picture of what the one world, new world order will be like. You know, space exploration, I think it ties into polytheism. It simultaneously occurs with polytheism. Also, here's another thing that I want to look at. In that movie Tomorrowland with George Clooney, there's a scene where I think up in the sky these drones are flying, and they form the number of the beast, 666, and it's kind of fast. You know, it's a little bit subtle, but nonetheless, I think it still depicts the Google Chrome logo and the CERN logo, 666, and we're going to play that right now.
USA's Safe Pilot rewards safe drivers with up to 30% off your auto insurance premium at renewal.
Hey, Dad. Came in kind of crooked, son.
Because our members have higher expectations to live up to. Take
Yeah, that's right here. You might think it's a coincidence, but I've been studying and breaking down and exposing propaganda ideologies in movies and in TV series for a long time. I know that these directors are very, very artistic, and they intentionally put things in their movies because that's what they are. You know, they're very, very artistic movies. It's about art, symbols, and I think this was done deliberately, because Tomorrowland, or the New World Order, or as KJ Osborne from the Scariest Movie Ever YouTube channel, what he says is that this is the beast system, and if you don't have that mark or that number, the number of the beast, then you can't and you won't participate in society. You will be considered an outcast, a rebel, a savage, a terrorist, a foreign threat. And I think that's ultimately why they want Big Brother symbolized by the all-seeing eye of Lucifer, the third eye of enlightenment, where supposedly you're all-seeing, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. That's why they want technology ingrained into every facet and every aspect of society, so they can record and monitor you. Because if anybody promotes a worldview that differs from their own, then they could hunt you down, and ultimately this will be a prison for all of us. But it's depicted as a utopia. It's depicted as our saving grace for a deliberate reason, so that we could fall right into the trap. But I think with the critical thinking, you can see the agenda behind this. And also, when you just look into the movie on Wikipedia, in the film, a disillusioned genius inventor and a teenage science enthusiast embark to an intriguing parallel universe known as Tomorrowland, where their actions directly affect their own world. Because all these movies that have to do with parallel universes, multiverses, and time traveling, that's indicative, that's symbolic of the New World Order, because technology, having this artificial intelligence inside of us, it'll essentially make us, or we'll be able to do just that through the vehicle of technology. It makes sense why the movie is called Tomorrowland, because this is the final world order, the final system that they plot, that they planned for humanity, where the elitists think they'll live forever and they'll rule forever and will forever be their slaves. Even in like Marvel movies, Marvel Studios, Spider-Man, Sandman, they talk about their story, or how they came about, how they came into existence, has to do with like multiverses, parallel universes, stuff like that. Because this is stuff that's talked about in the New Age religion, which will be the religion of the final world system, of the one world order, the one world religion, an ideology and a philosophy that everybody will hold embedded within themselves. Because the idea of parallel universes, it conditions us to be accepting of artificial intelligence. It conditions us to embrace transcendence and transhumanism. Because I remember reading some article, maybe by the HuffPost. I think that's what you call it, the Huffington Post. And the blogger, the author of that article, said that most futurists are actually transhumanists too. So they plan to be cyborgs, okay? They don't plan to live in their biological bodies, because people at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the hierarchy, they know what's going on, and they know what's going to happen to the earth. They know about global warming, ice caps melting, and most of us, the poor people, all of us, will be indebted, will be affected by these calamities that will happen. But with all their money, with all their status, and basically with them selling out, that's ultimately why they believe in transcendence, and that's ultimately why they come up with this idea or this term as for a metaverse. Like, because they're pushing the metaverse, I think it just fuels suspicion that they know that something is going to happen to the universe where it'll no longer be inhabitable. I mean, people online are identifying with like avatars instead of their profile pictures, which have always been fake with all these filters and stuff. But if that's not bad enough, then people actually create avatars. Like, this technocracy, this so-called digital utopia, is affecting everybody. And everybody isn't in tune with reality. They don't know exactly who they are anymore. They forgot their entire concrete, real existence. And look at here. Walt Disney Pictures originally announced the film in June 2011 under the working title 1952, and later retitled it to Tomorrowland after the Disney Parks theme land. In drafting their story, Bird and Lindelof took inspiration from the progressive cultural movements of the space age, as well as Walt Disney's optimistic philosophy of the future, notably his conceptual vision for the planned community known as Epcot. I remember reading 33rd Degree Mason, Manly P. Hall. He has a book called The Secret Destiny of America. And one chapter, I think it's even titled, I forgot what it's titled, but I think it's like in the later chapters, like from maybe 7 onward to like 12 or something. But basically he says that, like, although both movements, the progressives and the conservatives, are both part of the problem, right wing, left wing, both wings of the same bird, in this case the phoenix, because the occult uses phoenix symbolism because of what the phoenix stands for. Order out of chaos, out of the ashes of the old come a new reborn again phoenix. And that's ultimately their plan for the world, a new world order out of the destruction, the ashes of the old world system. But he says that the new world order will be a democracy. It'll resemble more of our democratic movement today than it does conservatives. But the whole conservative movement is hijacked. It's all watered down, lukewarm. A lot of these Republicans claim that they're against the globalists, and they talk about the hidden hand, the powers that be. We know who they are, but there is a lot of gatekeepers in this community, in this realm. So, but yeah, it's interesting how the space age is called progressive, as if we're progressing humanity towards something. It's space exploration, and space is a lot like the ideology of the progressive movement. Non-binary fluid. That's how space is, not our concrete third dimensional reality of common sense, but no, about space. You float and stuff like that. It doesn't abide by our laws of physics here on Earth, like what we akin to conservative doctrine, to common sense. And so it's not strange at all for me how these two tie in together, that the space age is considered progressive, and also simultaneously liberal doctrine is also considered progressive, as if they're progressing humanity towards being inclusive, to being open. Like, it's no longer about Earth and about the countries and the nations of the world. It's about space. It's about humanity as a whole. And the astronauts in Artemis, they talked a lot about that. Whenever they were broadcasting on like the third or fourth day, they were talking about humanity as a whole. Like, I'm not saying that in and of itself it's a bad thing, but just the agenda, the propaganda behind it, it's globalism. It's a human fraternity, basically a human brotherhood. No more ethnicities, no more races, nationalities, no more countries. It's about internationalism. But yeah, the astronauts, they talked a lot about planet Earth, or people as a whole. So that was pretty interesting to me too, because like I said in my other videos and articles I wrote about Artemis, I think that the space age will lead to internationalism. It will lead to globalism. Jean Jacques Dordain, he was, I think, the first president of the ESA, the European Space Agency, and they were affiliated, they were associated with NASA and the Artemis 2 program. And he even said numerous times in plenty of interviews, he said that he is for internationalism, that he hopes the space project will inspire internationalism. It'll inspire the world about like how they could cooperate and collaborate together. It's about bringing countries together for the sake of space. And also one of their main challenges was the fact that they had multiple scientists working together from different native tongues, and they all had to strive to come together as one because they come from different backgrounds. So to me, that's a hint or a symbol or just an example of about how like they plan to bring together countries, so that we'll have to forfeit our own culture, our own English speaking identity, our own American culture for the sake of world peace, for the sake of space exploration. And it's not that I don't want world peace, but they use that as a weapon for their own agenda, for their own globalist agenda, to rule the planet. Not because they actually want peace. They just want to rule the planet. And the best way they can do that is to trick us into coming together as one, so that we can be ruled by them. So there's a big difference. Nationalists aren't opposed to world peace, but we just understand that this whole idea of world peace, people don't see through it. They don't see beyond it. It's used as a weapon for globalism, not for actual world peace. It's used to enslave you, not to actually give you freedom. They want to enslave you, okay? And And Walt Disney, this guy was a Freemason. There's no concrete evidence, but when you look at Club 33, when you look at Disneyland and the white and black tiles that are the same in Masonic lodges, when you look at how he was a member, whenever he was a little kid, of that Demolay International Club. They're a Masonic club, kind of like Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts, you know. So yeah, there's no concrete proof they say that he's a Mason, but I mean, come on. Club 33, planned community, this is all basically communism. A planned community, planned city, planned town, or planned settlement is any community that was carefully planned from its inception and is typically constructed on previously undeveloped land. This contrasts with settlements that evolve organically. New town is the equivalent, is a code word for New World Order. The term Newtown refers to planned communities of Newtown's movement, in particular, mainly in the United Kingdom. It was also common in the European colonization of the Americas to build according to a plan either on fresh ground or on the ruins of earlier Native American villages. I wonder what this Newtown's movement is all about. When you look at Epcot, the experimental prototype community of Tomorrow, aka Tomorrowland, was an unfinished concept for a planned community intended to sit on a swathe of undeveloped land near Orlando, Florida. It was created by Walt Disney in collaboration with the designers at WED Enterprises, which would later become Walt Disney Imagineering, based on ideas stemming from modernism and futurism, and inspired by architectural literature about city planning. Disney intended Epcot to be a utopian, autocratic company town, although he struggled to somehow include residents in community governance. Autocratic and autocracy is a form of government in which absolute power is held by one person, the Antichrist, known as an autocrat. And it makes sense because it has the prefix auto, or the word auto. We're heavily, as a society, getting automized, meaning that robots and technology is taking over blue-collar jobs. Everything is automated. It's all automation. Electric cars, smartphones, smartwatches, smart houses, from thermostats to AC units to refrigeration. It makes sense that this will lead to an autocracy ran by an autocrat, because everything will be on auto, and that will automatically be in sync with the autocrat, with the Antichrist. Our thoughts and our actions will be obedient to him through an RFID microchip, because we'll be recorded and monitored in everything that we say and do. And like I said earlier, futurists, most of them are transcendents. They believe in transcendence, okay? They are what you call transcendentalists. And they disguise it, they portray it as a utopia, but I assure you there's nothing utopian about the utter and brute enslavement of mankind towards technocracy, towards these technocrats. It'll in fact be a dystopia. So many movies talk about this. Movies in the sci-fi genre, that talk about artificial intelligence. The plot or the narrative of the movie is always about how what people thought was a better promise for tomorrow ends up being their worst nightmare. It ends up being a dystopia. Look at this. Disney intended Epcot to be a real city, and it was planned to feature commercial, residential, industrial, and recreational centers connected by a mass multi-modal transportation system, just like Tomorrowland. That's why he called it the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. That scene in Tomorrowland, it depicts his vision, and so it makes more sense to me. That's why I don't have a hard time believing that he was a Freemason, because Freemasons, they believe in a human brotherhood. They believe in a human fraternity. There's black and white Masonic lodges. These are the people behind mass migration. These are the people behind tearing down these countries. Tearing down Western civilization, European civilization, Christian civilization. Forerunners of Disney's Epcot plan include Tomorrowland and Disneyland, which already featured monorails and people movers, and the Monsanto House of the Future monorails. You know where we read about that, where we hear about that? That's also in that movie with Chris Evans. It's another movie about the New World Order. They wanted to build, the antagonists of the movie wanted to build like a global monorail system. Problem, reaction, solution. It takes place aboard the Snowpiercer train as it travels a globe encircling track, carrying the last remnants of humanity after a failed attempt at climate engineering to stop global warming has created a new snowball Earth. thought this movie was where I first read about monorails, but the idea is still the same. The antagonist, the villain of the movie, he wanted to build a global system, a global railway train that connects the entire globe. Evans stars as Curtis Everett, leader of the lower class tail section passengers, as they rebel against the elite of the front of the train. Filming took place at yada yada. In 2031, 17 years after an attempt to stop climate change via stratospheric aerosol injection with the compound CW7 catastrophically backfired, creating a new ice age that destroyed life on Earth. The remnants of humanity shelter in a state-of-the-art, self-sustaining circumnavigational train, the Snowpiercer, run by reclusive transportation magnate Wilford. The passengers on the train are segregated, with the elite in the extravagant front cars and the poor crammed into squalid tail compartments overseen by armed guards. Yep. So this video, I just started researching this like maybe a few days ago. But I think this sheds light on the agenda and the propaganda behind Tomorrowland, and about how world festivals, world events that have a world platform, globalists use them to their advantage, and they are put there in place for a specific reason. Whether it's the World Cup, partnered with UNICEF, a multilateral institution coming from the United Nations. Whether it's, whatever the case may be, COVID-19. It doesn't matter that we have a so-called nationalist America First party in office. They ultimately bow down to these globalists because they lie about who the real globalists are. They call it the Democrats, or they call them some other names, but they point the finger at people that are gatekeepers for the actual true globalists. The Illuminati, these secret societies, and they've been in power for a very, very, very long time. They're the real hidden hand, the real unseen hand, the real shadow government.